Hello, my name is Levi Moore, and welcome to Community Pulse, a public affairs show about public health in Chicago on CAN TV. Today, my guests are Gianola and Katie Doble. Uh, Thanks for appearing on CAN TV on what feels like the first day, really, of fall in Chicago. It's September 4th, and uh, literally, it was like 45 degrees when I woke up. So, so this will mark the first CAN TV Community Post show of the fall. So, thanks. Before we get started, let me do a little bit of housekeeping, and I'm going to try to frame this particular show. Um, like I said, Community Pulse is a show about public health in Chicago and wellness, and it is sponsored by the Hectone Institute of Medicine. Hectone is a 80-year-old Chicago not-for-profit that has been addressing a myriad of public health care issues in Chicagoland. Uh, I work for Hectone, and part of my duties include serving as the coordinator of the Foxglove Alliance. And the Foxglove Alliance is a coalition of 15 public health organizations in Chicago. So for about the last 6 years, our top initiative has been what we call the M3R campaign, which stands for More Minorities in Medical Research. And there's a couple sides to it. Uh, One, to get more minorities to participate in clinical trials, and two, to encourage more minority Chicago youth to enter into careers in medicine and public health. But today, because of who our guests are, we're not essentially just be minorities in clinical trials. We actually have three people, including myself, who really have real experience in clinical trials, as I mentioned on previous shows. So uh, that's the housekeeping. We framed it. And so before we get into health journeys, tell us about yourself. Let's start with Katie. I just know, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having us here today, Levi. My name is Katie Doble, and I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. I used to take a lot of family vacations to Chicago, and I have a brother who lives there now. I moved to Denver, Colorado about 16 years ago. I work as a headhunter. So I'm a recruiter helping people find jobs. And I also do a lot of patient advocacy work. And I live with my husband. We've been married for 10 years, and our very high maintenance dog named Alex, who hopefully will not be barking in the background today.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Okay. And
Yeah, thank you. Like Katie said, I'm really glad to be here. I was born in the Midwest as well, so Midwestern through and through. But about 10 years ago, relocated to Central Coast, California. I am in research administration and clinical trials professionally. I'm the director of a research institute at a community-based hospital here. I've also had the opportunity to spend time with clinicians in a medical education and communication role. Similar to Katie, I still have family in the Midwest, but out here on the West Coast, I'm a wife to an amazing scientist, a mama to two great kids, an avid runner, and I am obsessed with a great cup of coffee.
me too. So now let's get into, well, clinical trials and the health journey. So, Katie, let's start with you. Tell us about your health journey and what role clinical trials played in it.
Yes. So when I was 31 years old in 2013, I was experiencing issues with my vision, and I went in to see my ophthalmologist, was sent directly to a retina specialist, and was diagnosed that afternoon with ocular melanoma. a rare form of melanoma that impacts 6 in a million people. Thankfully, at the time, the tumor was contained in my eyeball. And so my treatment was really straightforward. I had plaque therapy targeted to my left eye from the day I was diagnosed to the day that radiation was removed from my eyeball was 22 days, and I was a cancer survivor. And they biopsied my cells during the treatment, and I soon learned that I was a best case scenario. I was classified as a 1A, which meant there was a less than 2% chance that the cancer would ever spread. So about a year and a half later, I was getting a routine liver ultrasound. If it does spread, it tends to go to the liver. And got a phone call that afternoon from the oncologist herself with the devastating news that they found 12 plus suspicious lesions on my liver, and that, lucky me, I had fallen into this 2% category. So immediately I got my dad involved. I'm very, very lucky to be the daughter of a physician based in Omaha, Nebraska. My dad just retired as an internist. And we met with the doctor to understand what my treatment options were. And at the time, there were no FDA approved therapies for this rare cancer. So my doctor suggested that I start on Yervoy, which was the only, which is only approved for cutaneous melanoma or skin cancer. And she told me that I had 16 months to live. And my dad was on the other line, and he said, well, what about clinical trials? And her response was, that would be very expensive. And she really discouraged us from even considering that as an option. My mom passed away from pancreatic cancer in 1997 when I was 15 years old. And so my dad had already been through this once before with another family member. The week that my mom died, she was supposed to fly to California for a clinical trial, but she was too weak to go. And so he knew from experience that we needed to consider clinical trials first and foremost, not as an afterthought. And so he sort of took the reins, and I gladly let him. My boyfriend at the time proposed that week. And so I focused on my new engagement, and my dad focused on trying to find us a clinical trial that would give us more hope than the 16 months that doctor had given us. So that is sort of the introduction for me for clinical trials. And I ended up going into 4 different clinical trials over the course of the next 7.5 years, coupled with some traditional therapies, but every clinical trial bought me more time. And I'm happy to say that this month I celebrate 4 years being no evidence of disease or cancer-free, which is a complete miracle considering my initial diagnosis, and it is all thanks to clinical trials.
Thanks, Katie. Well, Anne, the camera is yours.
So I participated in clinical trials right now as a healthy volunteer to turn a personal vulnerability into a proactive step. So I have a strong family history of breast cancer. So I joined a preventive longitudinal study, to find out as I'm starting a family 10 years ago, particularly when I found out I was having my daughter, to have such a strong family history of breast cancer on both sides. I felt like I had to do something. I felt like I had to contribute to, kind of the larger landscape, but also I needed to learn more, for myself and for my daughter. So I ended up sharing data, both from kind of a prospective aspect. I wanted to learn what my risk assessment was. I wanted to know what my personalized, treatment, if you will, would be in an effort to kind of prevent or be prepared should I be diagnosed down the road. So I tried to combine both my interest and need to know more about my own risk, but also have an opportunity to contribute to other studies, to other risk assessment tools that could help other patients that may be in my position.
Well, you know what? It's interesting. The reason why we know each other is because the 3 of us are part of, or members of Walgreens' inaugural Patient Advisory Board. And everybody I've talked to that's on the board are kind of in, one-on-one or smaller, how we, entered or got into clinical trials was a little bit different. Like with mine, it was really different because I really never didn't know much about clinical trials and was lucky enough to have a specialist who was humble enough to state that my condition was beyond him. And he actually found the clinical trial for me. But you two are a little bit different from other people I've talked to because Katie, I think we said that it was because of family members, right? Who were, and you were probably very familiar with how clinical trials operated. But now ever since we started being on the board, and I kind of went public, I guess that was my unveiling as a clinical trial advocate. And everybody I've talked to about it said, well, what was the onboarding process like? So if whoever wants to share first.
Sure, I'm happy to go. I think from my professional experience, seeking patients who are eligible for trials is a full-time job. It shouldn't be, but it is. So knowing that, when I was seeking trials for myself, I was extremely proactive and just emailing the investigator, emailing the study team, saying, I understand I'm eligible for this trial. Here are my things. What do you think, study team? And, interestingly, it wasn't as smooth as an onboarding process as I thought it should be. Of course, they sent me forms and said, click here and sign here. And I think if I didn't have the professional background or experience, I would have been very overwhelmed. I wouldn't have known I wouldn't have known who to ask the questions to. This was all virtual. The study is taking place at a UCLA, which I'm fortunate to be near, but I've never stepped foot on campus or met a study personnel in person. So that said, it was me that needed to be proactive and say, did I sign everything? Did I click everything correctly? So I feel very fortunate that I knew how to do that, but I wish there had been more guidance from the study team of this is what to expect. This is how often we'll reach out to you. This is what happens next. It really took my own initiative to read and understand those steps and processes. So that's a good takeaway for me, again, on the professional side of how can I make it easier for patients that I'm enrolling onto trials that I have through my research institute here.
Katie.
Yes. So thank you, Anne. And that message of patient advocacy, you are your best advocate, or in my case, second best because my dad was my best. But my dad spent every waking moment talking to doctors from UCLA in California to Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York City to find us some options. And so the first trial that we explored was in New York City. I live in Denver, so I had to fly there multiple times just to get enrolled. It was December, so we're in the middle of the holidays, and right before Christmas, my fiance and my dad and I went out and met with the doctor, and then I had to go back and I had to do a battery of tests from EKGs to blood work to eye exams. It was really pretty intense. And I think the thing to know when you're exploring clinical trials is that just because you are interested does not guarantee that you will get into the trial. So there are a lot of people who end up being let down when they don't make it in for various reasons. Your blood work is not where it's supposed to be. And that's something, I knew early on to just be cautious, and that you weren't in until you were taking that drug in whatever way that you were taking it, and that you're not guaranteed to stay in. So I am a project manager by trade. That's how I started my career. And I had no idea going into it how much I would need to project manage and be my own advocate. And there were times during the trial where I would say, hey, it says week 3, you need to do an echo. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, we do. So you have to be paying attention.
Oh, wow.
To be on it in addition to work and living your life and all the other things. But a big strategy for us was having a backup option. And so when my dad was making those phone calls, he was putting my name out there so that doctors knew about my case. So that by the time we found my fourth clinical trial, which was at UPMC in Pittsburgh, when I walked in and that doctor met me, he said, "Wow, Katie, it's so nice to finally meet you. I have been following your case for years." I was very flattered. And then I was like, wait a minute, this guy is an oncologist. It's not that cool that he knows who I am. But I think it's really important once you get into a clinical trial, depending on your condition and your reason for needing the clinical trial, to be looking at backup options. And for me, as a stage 4 terminal cancer patient, my first doctor, he didn't outright say it, but he kept talking about what's our plan B. And he kept talking about my case with other doctors across the country. He knew that I would ultimately be eliminated from that trial and that I would need to find something else. And so there's a real strategy to that. And then every time I started over, it was that onboarding process again of going then to a different institution and getting enrolled and meeting with doctors and doing the tests. And then, crossing your fingers that you're going to be in this for a while and that it's going to help you.
Yeah. Now it's funny because like mine was completely different. They were looking for people that had 2 specific autoimmune conditions. So go there once it's, and actually also because it was my specialist referred me to this study. And once it was verified that I did have the 2, and that I didn't have any other conditions that might throw it. And I was, pretty good health. And then it was just a matter of filling out a lot of forms. But then once again, mine was at the University of Chicago Hospital. And so it was just a straight shot, the number 3 bus from where I worked at. And once a month, I would go for my treatment. So yeah, it was very structured. And then, but the way it sounds like I'm like the real lucky one out of the entire board because I had the exact once a month for 8 years. I had the exact same clinician.
Wow.
So, yeah. So it was just very, very consistent. So I mean, what I've learned too, wow, there's a lot of variety in how clinical trials can be administered. Um, Here's one for you. This will be like our 3rd question. Okay. Why is it important for people to know about clinical trials in managing their health and also in their family members' health? So whoever wants to go.
I can start with that. For me, it was important because we knew that I would be getting access to the most cutting edge treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And given that I literally did not have an FDA approved option, I was going to take that over knowing something that didn't work. I knew that my one option that I did have did not work, that I would not live if I went that route. And it's important to note too that, I was diagnosed in 2014 with stage 4 cancer. And to this day, 11 years later, there are still no FDA approved treatment options for my type of rare cancer and my specific biomarkers. So for me, it was the importance was having access to that cutting edge treatment. And then something that was important to me, which obviously is important to both of you as well, is knowing that I'm contributing to the advancement of science.
Yeah.
Knowing that, no matter how much time I have left on this earth, I am helping future people who are diagnosed with ocular melanoma. And that meant something to me, knowing that I could have an impact in that way. And so I was very happy to get involved, and I knew it was going to give me a better shot. And so for me, it was really a no-brainer.
That's great, Katie. I think again, from a personal family history perspective, it's just we've lost several family members, and for a long, long time we were convinced it was, you know, the BRCA gene, or there was just this very clear reason. And everybody was tested in the family and nobody tested positive. So we thought, well, there still has to be something else. And so that was my motivation of, okay, well, then let me contribute my data, for example. Let me, you know, share my images and you know, all of my things to the greater databases, because there has to be something. And so similar to what Katie said, is there's still research to be done. There are still questions to answer. And so if I can contribute in one way that either gives my family answers, that gives another family's answers, or gives my daughter an answer, for example, my granddaughter, if that comes. So I think having that knowledge of being able to contribute is amazing. I think, Katie, you've touched on access to cutting edge therapies, right? Is there a drug that's out there? Is there a test out there that could help us answer these questions? I think too, also, if people feel a sense of purpose and value by contributing, I think that's also just such a high factor of why you would participate in clinical trials or research, whether it's data, specimens, samples, images, even your qualitative responses, right? Just sharing your story, I think, is valuable. So I think that's what I would encourage families and individuals to participate. There's just so many options and opportunities to contribute in any number of ways. So that's why I pursue research, both professionally and personally.
Yeah, because well, like you, this was I was able to get my cousin into a clinical trial that was more preventive. Her mom had early onset dementia, and ever since that, as my cousin got closer and closer to her mom's age, she was real. It was scaring her, and luckily, because of the network I'm involved in, it's like, lo and behold, I found a clinical trial for it through a contact, and said, well, you'll just have, this is how you can do it. So, and another thing to just to stress to our viewers too is that I'm part of the Alpha Phi Fraternity Surgeon General's initiative, and we've been stressing learn your family medical history. That it is just really critical, because you can see patterns, and like you two stress is like, cutting edge, because things that were issues or problems 7 years ago are not now, or they're being addressed. Since we are all part of, I guess, the Walgreens family now to a certain extent, why did you join the Patient Advisory Board, and what do you expect to get out of it or contribute to it?
Maybe you want to go first?
Sure. I started doing patient advocacy in 2017, and I do feel like it's part of my purpose now. My story is compelling. It's a compelling argument for clinical research. And so if I can help people and raise awareness for clinical trials, I feel like that's it's part of why I'm still here. And I saw partnering with Walgreens as a great opportunity to have a greater platform to share that, and to help collectively with this amazing group of us and additional patients share our stories, leverage our stories, and educate people on clinical trials. There are a lot of misconceptions. There are a lot of unknowns, and I have always said I want there to be like a Got Milk campaign for clinical trials, so that people just know that you get diagnosed, and the statistics and what we know about cancer and how many people are impacted. I don't mean to sound like a Debbie Downer, but I mean, it impacts so many people. It is likely that you or someone will get cancer in your lifetime. And so I want to be a part of that education. I want to be a part of that campaign, so that if and when it happens to people, they have it in the back of their mind as, oh, maybe that's an option I should at least explore here. So for me, I saw partnering with Walgreens as an opportunity to share that information, to partner with incredible patients in educating people on what their options are.
And
Yeah. Yeah, similarly, I think my professional background in clinical trial ops, coupled with my experience as a patient, just makes joining the board, a natural next step, right? So I feel that I have a unique perspective on what it's like to navigate the healthcare system and participate in a study. And then how, as Katie mentioned, how can we communicate that? How can we convey that perspective to shape a better experience for future participants, right? And so I think having research as just an option. It's just a natural option no matter where you seek care. And using the platform through Walgreens, combining our voices, I think just takes us one step further to expanding that access to research as a care option. I think people just don't even realize it could be a choice. And so I just feeling like a board coming together, unifying our voices and our unique perspectives into one general message, I think is just such a great opportunity. And I feel super grateful to be included and to ensure that every voice is heard and valued. And I think we have that opportunity as a board, and I'm really excited about it.
Okay, believe it or not, we're at the end of the show. I had other questions, but I just want to thank you for appearing, Ann and Katie, and also to acknowledge the person who brought us here, Kendall Whitlock from Walgreens. So once again, this is Levi Moore for Community Pulse. Watch the show on CAN TV, and it'll also be available on YouTube. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.